Well, the other day I made a video talking about how David Pakman thinks he's such an expert on things. Of course, we discussed, and I actually discussed this with Big Talk, Little Talk, and the Radical Independent as well when we did our, joint collaboration videos. That he, in his expert opinion, believe Tulsi Gabbard should drop out because she has absolutely no chance. Again, we'll see what happens with that. I'm going to hold off to see some voting because he's relying on polls that made him look like a jackass after the 2016 election when he was relying on those, predicting Hillary would get a 322 landslide electoral college victory. She, of course, wound up with 232 electoral votes, off by 90, and Donald Trump won and broke the 300 electoral vote threshold. So, David Pakman got triggered. Oh boy, did he get triggered. And we're going to take a look at a little segment of a clip he released. Now, I'm not going to try and play both of them. I'm going to explain to you what he said in clip number 1 here. We're going to talk about it, and then we're going to take a look at clip number 2. But what he got so PO'd about was the fact that his video, Mr. Know-It-All, Mr. I'm right, Mr. I was 100% right in 2012, that's why I'm going to be right in 2016. Okay. Mr. I'm the man, my channel's growing, I'm becoming a somebody out here, and to prove that I'm a somebody, I'm going to copy Sam Cedar's, set, basically, so I look more like him because, I'm becoming a big YouTuber now. Okay. What he got so pissed off about was that people ratioed the hell out of his video. So I just went and looked at the stats before I started recording. He is sitting at 1.9K likes up against 1.4K dislikes. That ain't good, man. They ratioed your ass big time. Now, of course, what was this whole problem about? Well, most of you have probably seen this on other YouTube channels at this point. You've probably already gotten some wind of it. But pretty much, he is trying to tell the rest of us that Medicare for all will not be happening anytime soon. Okay? And, of course, he goes through the lobbying issue, but his big determining factor as to why it ain't going to happen anytime soon is because it's got to have 60 votes in the Senate. Okay? Now, we all know what he's talking about there. Obviously, there's the rule of the filibuster. If something doesn't have over 60 votes in the Senate, then you can't, the opposition can filibuster it, kind of stop it dead in its tracks. Well, if most of you recall, and I didn't have to listen to the Progressive Voice to learn this, I already knew this myself, but rather than take a long, lengthy amount of time, if you want to hear a more in-depth explanation on what I'm about to give you a brief description of here, go check out the Progressive Voice's YouTube channel. He did a segment on this very thing that we're going to be talking about, where he talks about how Kyle Kalinske actually came out basically on Twitter and reamed David Pakman a new one. And definitely go look at those tweets if you haven't seen that, because he definitely said, like, yeah, numbnuts, this is obviously going to be a big fight. This is obviously going to be, more difficult. But does that mean we should just bow out and bow down because it's going to be hard to do? No. I'll touch back on some more of Kalinsky's comments on it here in just a little bit. But basically, if you recall, the Republicans did not and do not have an over 60 vote majority in the Senate. And they got tax reform through. How? There wasn't Democrat support for it. Okay? How'd they get that passed? Through a nice little thing called budget reconciliation. And Bernie Sanders has come out and talked about this. And that's exactly how he plans to get something like this passed. He's talked about all the legislation in the past that's gone through on budget reconciliation. And it comes down to the fact that the VP who's obviously there in the Senate, you know, to bust up a tie vote, basically, okay, the vice president can then determine when it's acceptable to use the budget reconciliation. Now, David Pakman tried to come out and say, oh, but the parliamentarian, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but, you know, the vice president can override that parliamentarian. So that's first and foremost. It can be done without 60 votes in the Senate. Okay, so David Pakman, while he claims he's for Medicare for all, and maybe he is, and if he genuinely is, then he's clearly just ignorant of some facts. The fact he has a massive YouTube channel, and I'm as low as I am, and yet I know this and you don't, that speaks volumes to just how much of a know-it-all you're really not, David Pakman. Okay, but namely, you don't have to have the 60 votes in the Senate to get this through. You can do it on the budget reconciliation, okay? And if anyone does try to oppose what's going on here, and something else Kyle Kulinski pointed out in his tweets, now he didn't exactly cite David Pakman, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out if there probably was maybe even other people on Kyle's mind at the time, but without a doubt, David Pakman had to be one of those guys, okay? And what Kyle pointed out was, okay, all these Democrats that don't want to support the American people, well, here's what we need to do. We need to have protests. We need to have another march on Washington like they had for the civil rights movement many, many years ago. We need to, the people need to get out and do their part. And they also need to get out and do their part. And the people who support doing the right thing on Capitol Hill need to get out and do their part and start primarying these SOBs and voting them out of office. Challenge them, and then the people need to vote them out and put someone in that's worth a damn. Because these people are clearly way too bought and paid for, and if they're not going to vote the right way, get them the hell out of office. Okay? So David Pakman, you know, after everyone was thumbing his video down, he then went on to make a video saying,
it really pains me to have to talk about this today. It really does. But I'm really worried about a faction of my audience. And quite frankly, I'm really worried about the left. And this is not concern trolling. I'm worried because of the response to a video that I did yesterday explaining some unfortunate realities about Medicare for all. I did a video yesterday where I explained, in no uncertain terms, we're not getting Medicare for all anytime soon. Now, there are lots of good progressive takes that agree with that. One example is progressive economist Dean Baker's recent comments about Medicare for all. He is a progressive. I had him on the show recently. There was no question about it. I did the video in good faith. I said, listen, I'm for Medicare for all. I believe Medicare for all is the gold standard. I want Medicare for all. I'm not suggesting that we push lame centrist policy because getting Medicare for all will take much longer than some people think. I'm not suggesting that we don't hold our candidates accountable to the gold standard that is Medicare for all. But I explained some unfortunate realities about Medicare for all with the hope that once we all understand these, we can be stronger in our advocacy for better policy as activists, as media people, as voters, people in the audience. The video I did is about 10 minutes long, and I expected that there would be some comments saying, David, you're kind of being a defeatist here, even though it's not what I'm actually doing. But the reaction has been, again, it's just from a piece of my audience. A lot of people understood what I was doing and appreciated it. 3 minutes after the video was published, remember, the video is 10 minutes long. 3 minutes after the video was published, it had 50 dislikes. It's only been 3 minutes. You couldn't possibly have watched the 10-minute video, even if you had it on double time on YouTube. In the 3 minutes, it took 50 people to dislike the video. And there are either people who didn't watch the video at all, or people who just watched it and don't understand what I'm saying, or people making bad faith arguments. But I am very worried because if that is the contingent that the success of our movement depends on, we will lose. And I hate to say that. Let me give you some examples. And again, I'm doing this because I want to win. And I'm worried that there are factions in our movement that are totally misguided in their reactions to people simply saying, hey, guys, we should be aware of this stuff. One example, I'm not surprised David is shilling against Medicare. I actually say in the video probably close to a dozen times, I'm for Medicare for all.
Don't want to play through this guy's entire clip. I think you're getting the gist here. He's going to start reading off comments that were made on his video that hurt his feelings so damn badly. Start from the top, okay? David, it doesn't matter how many times you come out in one of your videos and talk about how much you're for Medicare for all. What you're trying to tell people is that there's basically this very slim chance that what you want, what I want, what many other people want is actually going to pass. You're telling everyone that's a tiny little window, and if it happens, well, for God's sakes, you're probably going to have to deal with years upon years upon years. You didn't use those exact words, but it ain't going to happen anytime soon. Okay? No time soon are we to expect this. Now, am I fool enough to believe that maybe within the first year of a Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang presidency, if that were to happen, that we would get it in year 1 or even year 2 or possibly even within those first 4 years? Am I dumb enough to believe that it's going to be smooth sailing? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It would be lovely if it were, but I am not that naive. I understand that it's a hard fight. So does Kyle Kulinski. That's why he sent out those series of tweets saying, yeah, clearly it's going to be hard. Clearly it's going to be difficult. But you have to stand up. You have to fight. And you have to stick to it. What you're doing is killing people's spirit. You see, what you could have said was that get prepared for this to happen. And this is how you need to respond. Instead, you're trying to sit there and say, well, this is what I want. This is what I want. I really do want it. I don't want this. I really want this. But I just want you to know you're going to have a really hard time ever actually getting this. So don't really hedge your bets on it anytime soon. But that's what we want. That's what we should have. That's what we should have. I'm not going to tell you any good ideas about how to get there. I'm just going to let you know how it's probably not going to happen for you anytime soon. That does not send the right message to anyone. And David, again, let me put it to you like this, okay? And I hope my channel doesn't turn out to be this way. But I want you to take a look at people like Kyle Kulinski and Jimmy Dorsey. We'll focus on the bigger YouTubers here, okay? Look at their views compared to their subscribers. Because I heard you say recently that your YouTube channel has grown to new heights. It's bigger than it's ever been, right? Now, David, I've looked at your subscriber number, and your views, they're not close, my man. They're not even remotely close. Your subscribers are here, and your views are here. Now, obviously, both of them way outweigh a channel like mine, but that doesn't matter. Because you see, right now, I'm pushing roughly a little over 180 subscribers right now. Still a very small channel compared to someone like you, for example, as far as the subscriber rate goes. And in the views column, I'm starting to just barely pass, the 50 to 60 mark. Now, there's been a few of my videos, I've definitely broke the triple digits column. And there's some of my views that have gone way beyond my actual subscriber rate. Almost double, sometimes triple at the time what my subscriber rate was when you got up into, 2, 3, 4, 500 margins even. I think I may have like one that's close to like 500 views or something. Okay? So, David, if you're so good, your channel is so big, everyone's got this faith and this confidence in you, how come you've got all those subscribers, but only a fraction are constantly tuning in and watching your content? No, see, David, what that tells me is why you got so many thumbs down on that video is because, one, people have found you to be very predictable, David. They liked you once upon a time. They don't like you anymore. And why? Because you shifted and became the problem. You became the guy that kisses corporate candidates' ass. Now, you're the special kind of guy that just doesn't blatantly do it. You're the kind of guy that wants to come out and make us all believe you're pro-Bernie, you're pro, all this progressive stuff, yet you use talking points, okay, that basically try to crush people's hope on something like Medicare for All, and of course call it a hard-to-accept truth. No, because part of what you gave as proof for why we wouldn't get anytime soon was dead-ass wrong. You don't have to have 60 votes. It can be done on budget reconciliation. Okay? That's just pure and simple. So you're giving false information, and yet here you, the guy who's supposed to be so knowledgeable, you want to call everybody else out and try to make a monkey out of them on how wrong they are, and you can't even tell the truth on that. Okay? So David, people, I think, have started to become very clear about what you truly are. And whatever they thought you were once upon a time, whether you were that in the beginning to start with or whether you have changed, they don't like what you've become anymore. And they don't like what they're seeing. And so they know you're going to try to put some spin in your video to make it sound like, well, I just want you to understand I'm not against Medicare for All. I really do want Medicare for All. I'm just going to give you all these talking points that's going to try and crush your dreams about having any chances of getting it, really. Okay, yeah. The productive thing, since you have a big channel, clearly you have some funding and some resources, would be to start pitching to the masses, since you have that bigger audience than a guy like myself. The proper thing to do would be to start trying to tell people, here's what we're going to have to do to get it. Because we're probably going to run into these hurdles and roadblocks along the path. You don't focus on the solution, you focus on the problem. Well, you're never going to solve problems, David, without solutions. And you seem to not want to even discuss that. You just only want to focus on what the problem is and just keep, to use Joe Biden's, gaffe line from the last debate, keep punching at the problem. But you don't really want to reference solutions at all. So, David, that's why people ratioed your video, and whether you're triggered or not, people like me really couldn't give a rat's ass. That's what happens to you when you become a sellout and you start making content on a regular basis, moving the other way and trying to spin this web of confusion where you want people to think you're still really more progressive, you want to get things done and you want to get things accomplished, but then you turn around and use talking points like that to basically try to crush the hope that it's ever going to actually happen. It's just a lot of wishful thinking. If it does happen, pack a lunch, because you're going to be waiting for a really long time to ever actually get it. And you say that it's people on the left who didn't like what you said, who ratioed your video within 3 minutes, even though it was a 10-minute video, because they didn't want to clearly listen to the rest of your BS for that remaining 7 minutes. Okay? Point being, and maybe some of them just did troll you and dislike your video. I'm not saying, I have no idea. But I have a sneaking suspicion, David, because all the people that I see tweeting about you, they grew tired of it, and they thought and saw in you a change that you were starting to become more of a sellout. You were starting to become YouTube MSNBC type crap. Okay? Claim one thing, but you're really trying to do something else for whatever the reason. Okay? And you say that it's the people who criticized you that are going to cost elections. No, David, it's your type that are going to cost elections. It is your type that's going to lose, because it is your type who, after Bernie got screwed in 2015, bowed down, kissed Hillary Clinton's ass instead of using your platform, even if it resulted in a Trump presidency. And I got news for you. Even with your ass kissing of Hillary Clinton, basically, you may have pointed out flaws, but you, TYT, you all went out and said, well, she's better than Donald Trump, so we'll take Hillary. And yet she still lost. So clearly, you didn't have a winning strategy in 2016. Matter of fact, You tried to predict what the winning strategy was going to be, and I'll say it again, you were off by 90 electoral votes. So again, David, it's gotten to the point. No one really cares what you think anymore. That's why your numbers, as far as your views compared to your subscribers, has dropped so much. Okay? In other words, your views are falling like Kamala Harris's funds. Okay? That's not a good thing for you, David. So when you want to go out and do this trolling crap on Medicare for All and things like that, and use framework that almost, tries to crush the idea that it's ever going to actually happen. If it does, it's going to happen when we're all old, to hear you tell it, basically. Okay? Yeah, don't be surprised, David, when your next video that you try and do something like that to gets ratioed as well, because it's probably going to happen.